r/ask Reddit. People who have had friends stab you in the back. What is the story? Made plans to go see a movie with my friends for my 16th birthday and planned it weeks in advance. Everybody bailed the day before but I decided to still go see the movie. Ran into my whole group of friends leaving the movie theater while buying popcorn. That's brutal. Did you confront them? Yay. Lot of hemming and hawing with no real explanation and no apology. Still went to see my movie, Underworld, and learned a valuable lesson about people and friends. Sucked at the time but eventually that lesson was a great b-day gift. Asked 2 of my friends if they wanted to live together in college. Then one of them asked another person in our friend group if he wanted to join in as well. Then they asked another, and another, and then once there were too many people for one apartment, they dropped me out of it. No longer friends with any of them. Was kinda a wake up call though because I definitely gave way too much of myself to those people not knowing that I was the most expendable one. It really taught me not to put others on a pedestal and respect myself more and has since led to me developing far more healthy relationships that bring me a lot of happiness. I had one friend. I was bullied by everyone at elementary school because my friend would be bullied too when they hung out with me at school. We only played outside of school. One day a popular kid asked to play with me during recess. I was ecstatic. Until after a while they said you're not as bad as friend said you are. And that's how I learned why I was bullied. So they were making people bully you just so you'd have no one else and play with after school? What happened after you found out? Best friend stopped talking to me after my dad died. Took the whole friend group with him. Apparently I was too emotional. I was 13. Having my entire friend group walk away from me when I was in such a shitty place stuck with me forever. This was similar to my experience as well. I lost my father at 9 years and all but one of my friends ditched because they didn't know how to deal with a person in grief. I'm still close with the friend that stayed 21 years later. Hope everything is going well now. My mother told me she was sick of being with dad. She told me a bunch of things he'd done which made her afraid of him. She asked me to tell a few of her close friends about how she was being treated because she wanted them to understand why she was leaving. Then she decided to stay with him. So she told her friends that she had no idea what was wrong with me, but they should pray for me because it looked like I was going through something. My own mother stabbed me in the back. Sounds like your mom has some issues. Sorry. In 2014 I woke up Jan. 1st in horrible pain. I ended up needing an emergency surgery to remove my gallbladder. I was a single mom to 2 kids under 5 and had just moved back to my hometown after living out of state. We'd had to leave a really shitting living situation and had only been back about a month and I had not found a job at that point. I had a really close family friend who had been living with me before I had moved back and he ended up homeless so I bought him an $80 bus ticket and got him back to our hometown and let him stay with me a few days. He quickly found another place to stay but we had invited him to my youngest son's 2nd birthday, which is the 6th of Jan. I was like 4 days out from surgery at this point and could barely make it down my stairs at this point so he offered to go and pick up the pizza and cake for my son for me. We didn't have a huge party or anything. I was on food stamps and had cash assistance since my son's dad was not involved at all and did not pay child support. Even so I offered for him to get himself a small pizza to take back to the girl he was staying with since her and her kids couldn't make it over. So party goes great. Everyone has a good time. Especially both my kids. A few days later my grandma was going to go grocery shopping for me so I go to get my card and realize it's not there. I never got it back from the guy. And I forgot he even had it since I was all doped up on pain meds from surgery. I tried calling him like 5 times and he didn't answer. So I get onto my account online to check my balance and he took everything. I had like $600 in cash. Paid my rent and bought my kids the things they needed. And then I had like $750 in food stamps. All of it was gone. He let the girl he was staying with convince him to steal my money from me. I'd only used the money to buy the bus ticket and the pizza and cake for my son since I'd been in the hospital for the first 4 days of the year and only home for 2 after that. It is still to this day the most intentionally ducked up thing anyone has ever done to me. Mostly because it was such a huge duck you to my kids. Like who steals from a single mom recovering from a life-saving surgery on her kid's birthday, especially after I helped him. Like holy shit. He accused me of sexually assaulting his younger sister, who was basically my little sister too. At the time, it's completely false and it's the most mind-boggling thing that's ever happened to me. Did they have anything to gain from it? I learned at a young age that people suck. My stepmom and dad tried to claim my grandpa raped me, just so they could use that in court to get custody of me. It really took a toll on my grandpa, who did nothing wrong. I had a best friend that I knew for 16 years. She got pregnant and her parents tried to kick her out. Her parents wanted her to get an abortion, but she refused. One of our HS friends told me someone should push her down a flight of stairs so she can miscarry. I told her that's a very bad idea and defended my best friend. The next day, the principal came by my class to ask me if I could attend a meeting about something important. If I didn't attend, I was going to be expelled. When I arrived to the meeting, our shared friend claimed I was going to shove my best friend down flights of stairs so she can miscarry. My best friend believed her. We stopped talking after that. That's one of the worst things in this thread. Duck the former shared friend. Fingers crossed for karma. I had one friend who honestly wasn't my favorite person because she was really manipulative. But I never said anything bad about her. I found out that she had been shit talking me to all of our mutual friends and telling them all that I did horrible things that I never did. Ended up essentially being pushed out of that entire friend group, and it ruined a lot of my high school experience. Village gossips. Personally, I am just happy I am not part of that miserable group anymore. As one wise man said, empty can rattles the most. We, my husband and I, had a friend that we helped get back on his feet, paid off some tickets he had, got his license reinstated, hooked him up with a solid connection for a reasonable, well-running car to replace his beater, and gave him a place to live and a job, automotive repair. He decided it was a better choice to tell all our customers we were overcharging them. Spoiler, we weren't. And he'd do the jobs cheaper if they'd bring it to him at his house. This was a short time after he moved out of our house, after never repaying anything he owed us. Not that we'd asked. Broke my heart. My wife said she needed some time for herself, so she went to stay at her mom's for a while. One day I went to pick up my kids and walked in on her and my best friend having sex. Turns out it had been going on for a while and she knew him before she knew me, which I had no clue about. This would prompt me to conduct a DNA test on the kids. I hope the results don't break your heart. I was worried about that years ago, but both are teenagers now and clearly resemble myself and their mom. Had a good bud of mine, who's the godfather of my son, living with me and my wife. I travel a lot for work, and was out of the country for about 6 months in the Middle East. Came back and found out she was pregnant, with twins, and that they weren't mine. Best friend for 8 years started sleeping with my girlfriend, later wife, a week after I introduced them. Took 6 years after my son was born to find out they would meet up a few times a month. Was a chance he wasn't mine. Luckily he is. My friends told me to grieve better after my boyfriend died. Years ago when I did a health sciences undergraduate degree, most of the cohort was determined to get into medical school. Our medical school program mainly accepted students from only our competitive undergraduate course. Due to subject prerequisites, we all knew each other and were friendly, hanging out together and forming study groups. Many of my friends were great. We shared tips, resources, practiced exams and interviews together. But there were a handful who really wanted to get into medical school, and since the program ranks applicants mainly based on undergraduate results, the better your friends perform, the lower your ranking is for selection. So near application time, some of us would head off to the university library to borrow out textbooks to find chapters or page numbers that the lecturer mentioned would be on the exam, and they would be ripped out. You'd go and find another library copy of the textbook, and that page would be ripped out too. All of them. Totally removed in a hurry. I didn't believe that someone from our cohort did it until interview practice began. Students began obtaining copies of the questions from previous years and lying when others asked if they had it. I saw someone give a terrible, awful interview answer and the other student would give them glowing feedback and inform them they should say that, word for word. During the interview, it was a shit show and a lot of relationships fell apart, or were never the same again. Friend only listened to me to tell all of my secrets and spread rumors about me. Fun times. I booked a table for 6 people to watch a sports event at a bar. I tell them so. All 5 friends say okay, we will be there. No one shows up or even has the decency call or text that they were not coming. Similar thing happened to me a couple years back. I hosted a little Halloween party at my place for 4 friends. And even though it was a month in the making, all of them flaked. I don't know about you, but that really took the wind out of my sails and I haven't hosted any get-togethers since. Friend told me they weren't doing anything for their birthday. On the day of their birthday, photos appeared on Facebook of them out with the rest of our friends. They're not my friends anymore. Man. One of my most painful memories from elementary school was when I saw one of my friends showing other kids pictures from her birthday party that happened the weekend prior. Almost all of my good friends were there having a blast with her, except me, obviously. She seemed remorseful when she realized that she forgot to invite me, but we were never as close after that, and we were pretty good friends with each other, too. A guy who seemed like a good mate when it was just us, and then as soon as there was someone else, or a group, he took the piss out of me and tried to make me the butt of all jokes. Even worse if there were girls around. After a while, I called him out on it, and he was just like, dude, it's just a joke. But I was done with him after that. I saw him randomly earlier this year, after years of no contact, and it was amicable, and we caught up a bit on how we're getting on with our lives. And while he has grown up and become a bit more grounded, there's been no intention of rebuilding a bridge. I think if I ever met someone who has that side to their personality, I'd drop them like a hot potato. In 7th grade she wrote a 10-page letter on all the reasons I should kill myself, and had all but one of my friends sign an agreement after I confided in her that I felt like something was wrong with me. Early undiagnosed depression. Go figure. The day she gave it to me was arguably the worst day of my life at the point because my parents told my sister and I that they were considering divorce, and my grandmother died. My best friend since 4th grade called her my soul sister. I genuinely was so grateful to have what I thought our friendship was. She fell on hard times, got weirdly religious, and stopped working while going to her private uni. I was always there for her, shoulder to cry on, visited her all the time because she didn't have any friends and I knew she was lonely, helped her with groceries and rent, helped her family out. One day she came over and after buying her groceries, she told me a higher power has been telling her to cut me off for 2 years and she had to listen. Now she wants to be friends again. It's a hard nope from me, dog. I had some friends who were always talking crap about me. Found out from another good friend, and one day I came to school in my brand new jeans that costed around 150 euros and they put glue on my chair while I was in the bathroom. I sat on it. I asked which one of them did it. None of them said a word. We went to the principal's office and these pos had the balls to say that I put it there to get them in trouble. Their parents were called and I earned around 200 euros and a new pair of jeans. Grew up going to the same church and met my friend and her family when I was 14. We grew up together, hung out and our families would be together all the time. Fast forward many years and I am dating a guy that I fell in love with for almost 3 years at the time. He went to ND to the oil fields for work. I went to visit him and could tell something was off a bit. Took the train from my town to Williston, 22 hours to get there. Visited him for 5 days and on the last day he gets up and goes to shower. I grab his phone. We had an open policy with each other that either could be on each other's phones. I found the emails between my friend and him. My family still hangs out with her family and her. I refuse to be around or speak to her. Been very good friends for over 2 years. Their roommate moved out and they asked me if I want to move into their spare room. I was very happy to live with my good friends and I did everything I could to be the best roommate possible. After 3 weeks they found another source of income and kicked me out. First, they offered to help me find another accommodation but the next day they changed their mind and just told me to leave by the end of the month. It was 7 days until the end of the month. They didn't spoke to me ever since. When we met somewhere in town they acted like they never seen me before. I have no ducking idea what I did wrong. For several years, I was best friends with 2 other girls in my elementary school. We always hung out together at school and outside of school. When I was 10, I befriended a nice boy in my class and rumors started circling that he was my boyfriend. He was not. However, they got jealous that I was spending time with him and befriended some kids who liked to tease me. Then, word got around that I had started my period and apparently this was hilarious and also conclusive proof that I could no longer be friends with them. So one day after school those girls and their new friends ganged up on me and tried to beat me up to signal the end of our friendship. Then, when I was 11 I attended a new school, and I became friends with these girls who were really nice to me. I was the only foreigner in the class and it was a bit difficult for me to adjust. So I was grateful that some students were being welcoming. They invited me to a sleepover to celebrate one girl's birthday, and they sexually assaulted me by groping me and trying to forcibly undress me despite my protests. Obviously, I was massively disturbed, and after that, kept my distance. Then they had the audacity to ask why I was ignoring them. I don't know. Because you clearly have no respect for me or my bodily autonomy? When you have multiple instances of friends harming you and betraying your trust during a pivotal point in your childhood, it seriously damages your ability to connect with others or maintain a healthy self-image. Never lend a friend money, especially if they still haven't paid you back from anything else they owe you. People always say this. A friend of mine have lent each other money in small amounts often over the years. In our early 20s there'd be lots of times I'd be flat broke and he'd have some cash and vice versa for going out. We'd always pay each other back. I've also needed larger amount, for example, about $800 to cover rent when I was in a bad spot. Paid him back. Neither of us have any family who would give lenders money. Recently, because of a bunch of stuff he needed me to pay for his tuition for some classes he's taking, which was about $5,000. It took him about a year, but just made his last payment. Without us doing this, there would have been lots of times we'd have just been ducked. Told a friend a secret in high school. I suffer from major depression and social anxiety. Don't tell anyone. I'm seeing a therapist. That took a lot for me to say. I was making progress. Friend proceeded to tell the entire class. People thought I was crazy. That's high school. I stopped being friends with the few friends I had. I was more alone. I graduated high school with 0 friends. Thanks. Don't worry though. In college I blossomed into a bearded man with no fears. Life has been swell ever since. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content. It's free and that's a great price.